I'm sitting here in the big house, in a hallway most of you have never seen on camera. For 10 years, my family has been defined by silence, secrets, and a rift that felt impossible to bridge. But last night, the silence was finally broken. I witnessed something I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. My mother, Michelle, and my sister, Jill, finally standing face to face in this very hallway. There were no cameras from a network, no publicists. Just the raw, heartbreaking truth. What Jill revealed in a letter she thought was lost changed everything my mother believed about the last decade. Today, I'm breaking my own silence. I'm going to tell you exactly what was said, why my mother was in tears, and the secret person from our past who tried to keep them apart forever. This is the truth, at last. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever felt like you were living in a house full of people, but there was a ghost following you? Not a spirit, but a ghost of a relationship that died before its time. That's what it's been like in the big house for the last decade. Today is January 11, 2026. Outside, the Arkansas wind is cold, but inside these walls, something even colder has finally begun to melt. I'm Jessa Seewald. Usually, I'm the one trying to keep everything together, the one who smiles for the cameras and tells you everything is fine. But today, I'm not talking to you as a reality star or a social media personality. I'm talking to you as a daughter and a sister who just found a truth that was buried alive. This isn't just news. It's a confession. It started 2 days ago. I was in the basement storage area, a place that feels like a time capsule of our lives. There are boxes of old clothes, toys from when we were 19 kids under one roof, and stacks of letters from fans. I was looking for Jana's old sketches for her baby nursery. Something to send her as she starts her new life in Nebraska. I moved an old, heavy wooden trunk, one that belonged to Grandma Mary, and I noticed a gap in the floorboards. Tucked away almost as if it had been kicked there on purpose was a thick envelope. It was dusty, stained, and looked like it had been there for a lifetime. When I saw the handwriting on the front, my breath caught in my throat. It said, "To Mama, private. Please read." It was Jill's handwriting, but the postmark was from 2015, 10 years ago, and the seal was still perfectly intact. My mother had never even seen it. I sat there on that cold, dusty floor for what felt like hours, just staring at that envelope. In 2015, our world was exploding. That was the year the secrets came out, the year the shows were canceled, and the year the rift between Jill and my parents became a canyon. We all thought Jill had walked away. We thought she had chosen the world over us. With my hands shaking, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I opened it. Inside were 6 pages of yellowed paper, covered in ink that had started to fade, but words that burned like fire. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't a lawyer's demand. It was a plea. Jill was begging for a conversation. She was asking to come home for dinner without the cameras. She was telling Mom she loved her. Reading those words in 2026 felt like a crime. All those years we spent judging her. We were judging a ghost. She had reached out, and someone in this house, made sure that hand never reached my mother. I couldn't keep it. I walked up those stairs, through the long hallway you see in the thumbnail, the one that feels so dark even when the lights are on. I found my mother, Michelle, in her quiet room. She looked tired. The weight of the last few years has taken its toll on her. I didn't say a word. I just handed her the letter. I watched her face as she saw the date. I watched her eyes move across the pages Jill had written a decade ago. And then the silence was broken by a sound I will never forget. It was a sob that came from the very bottom of her soul. She realized in that moment that she hadn't lost her daughter because of a feud. She lost her because of a lie. Someone had hidden this truth. Someone wanted them to stay enemies. As she sat there, clutching that old paper to her chest, I knew the truth at last wasn't just a headline. It was the moment the Duggar family finally woke up from a 10-year nightmare. After Mom finished reading that letter, the room felt like it was losing oxygen. She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen, and asked the question that had been burning in my mind since I found that envelope. How did this happen, Jessa? Who put this here? You see, in a family as large as ours, and with a business as big as Counting On used to be, there were always people around. Security, producers, assistants, and even family friends who claimed to have our best interests at heart. But as we looked closer at the envelope, we noticed a small, handwritten note on the back of the seal. It wasn't a name, but a set of initials. Initials of someone who had been Jim Bob's right hand for years. Someone who believed that if Jill reconciled with Mom, the brand of the family would be ruined by her liberal views. That figure you see in the shadows, that mysterious person walking away, it represents the gatekeepers. For years, my father trusted a small circle of advisors to handle the mail, the legal documents, and the communication between the sisters. This specific person believed that by keeping Jill isolated, they could control the narrative, They told my father that Jill was dangerous to the younger kids. They told my mother that Jill didn't want to talk to her. And to Jill, they sent messages saying the family had officially disowned her. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. They used our faith as a weapon, telling us that shunning the rebellious was the only way to stay holy. But sitting there in 2026, looking at that 10-year-old plea for love, we realized we weren't being holy. We were being played. I knew I couldn't stop there. I took the letter and walked straight to my father's office. The big house was silent, but my heart was drumming against my ribs. When I showed him the letter and the initials on the back, the look on Jim Bob's face wasn't anger. It was realization. He had trusted this person with our family's soul. My father has made many mistakes. We all know that. But seeing him realize that his own protection had actually destroyed his relationship with his daughter was devastating. He realized that the gatekeeper had been the one whispering poison in his ear for a decade. The person was confronted that very night. No more secrets. No more advisors coming between blood. With my father sitting in silence and my mother still clutching the letter, I did what should have been done in 2015. I picked up the phone. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't call a producer. I called my sister. When Jill answered, she sounded tired. But when I told her, Jill, we found the letter. We found the truth. There was a silence on the other end that felt like an eternity. And then I heard her whisper, "You finally found it." That was the moment the shadow in the hallway finally disappeared. The person who tried to hide this truth was gone. And for the first time in 10 years, the road to the big house was open for Jill Duggar. After that phone call, time seemed to stop. Jill told me she was getting in the car immediately. It's a few hours' drive. And during those hours, the big house felt different. My mother didn't stop crying, but for the first time they weren't tears of frustration. They were tears of a mother waiting for a lost child to come home. I sat on the porch watching the driveway. I kept thinking about all the missed Christmases, the births of her children that we only saw on social media, and the walls we had built out of pride. The truth at last wasn't just about a letter anymore. It was about whether we could look each other in the eye after 10 years of silence. At 1:30 a.m., a pair of headlights finally pulled into the gravel driveway. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. When the car door opened and Jill stepped out, she looked smaller than I remembered. She looked vulnerable. My mother didn't wait for her to reach the door. Michelle Duggar, the woman you see in the thumbnail, the one who has always tried to be so composed, ran out into the night. When they met at the edge of the porch, there were no words, just a sob that seemed to echo through the entire valley. They collapsed into each other's arms. That image of my mother with her hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. That wasn't for the cameras. That was a mother realizing she almost lost her daughter forever because of a lie. Wa finally moved inside, into that same hallway where the letter had been hidden for a decade. We sat around the kitchen table, the same table where we grew up. Jim Bob came out of his office. He didn't say much at first, but when Jill looked at him, he simply said, "I was wrong to trust the shadows over my own blood." They talked until the sun started to rise. Jill explained how she felt abandoned, and Mom explained how she thought Jill had turned her back on her faith. It turns out both sides had been told the same lie by that Gatekeeper we unmasked in the last segment. Seeing them hold hands across that table in 2026 was the most powerful thing I have ever witnessed. The feud didn't end with a legal settlement. It ended with a hug in the middle of the night. As I watched the sun come up over the Arkansas hills today, everything looks different. Jana is preparing for her new life and her first baby, and our family is about to welcome the 40th grandchild. But the greatest gift isn't the new life coming. It's the old lives that have been restored. If you're watching this and you have a rift in your family, don't wait 10 years. Don't let a gatekeeper or a lie keep you apart. Seek the truth, even if it's painful. Because at the end of the day, when the cameras are off and the shows are over, all we have is each other. Thank you for walking this long journey with us. The Duggar family is finally, truly coming home.